So for this little mini lecture, I'm going to be talking about the 4 components of a really strongly written email. And I know that sounds funny because we write thousands of emails. I mean, there's something like 7 trillion emails sent on a regular basis. So, but because that is the way to communicate in business, we need to be able to do it well. So there's 4 components that I'd like you to think through when writing your emails. And this makes it more purposeful and hopefully more effective, because the goal is that we want people to see our emails in their box and open them, read on them, but most importantly, we want them to act on it too. That's really important. We don't want them to just read it. We want them to do something as a result of reading it. Okay, so the first thing that we need is an effective subject line. One of my pet peeves is having no subject line, but what does a good subject line look like? So the first thing that a good subject line has is a signal word, because it tells the reader what they're going to have to do with that message. So think about words to start off that subject line, like information about, or action required, or meeting request about. So thinking about what are some words that we can signal what that reader is going to have to do as a result of reading your message. That will help them to say, okay, and categorize it. Is it just information? Is there something I have to do? Is there something that I need to make a decision on? Is there a change that I have to make? And that's really helpful for just, even if you just did that, to help your reader understand what they need to do. The other part of that subject line, though, is not just the signal word, because if you just put information or FYI in the subject line, I am much less likely to click and open that email. But if you have a little bit more information at the end, so let's just say that you were trying to get a decision made about a new project, whether it was going to happen or not. Maybe you would say, decision needed regarding new recycling project, okay? And maybe even you put a due date right in the subject line so they know that it's time bound. It's not like make this decision someday, decision by Friday, January 23rd, something like that. So you can use that subject line to get a lot of information across. So that's one important part. The second important part when we think about having our emails done correctly is that very first part, that first couple of lines in the email. And when we do verbal messages, when we talk in front of people, we say, okay, you just have a couple of seconds to really get their attention, and then at least you grab it. And that's the same for written messages too. Same with emails. Open with the main purpose of your email. Focus on what it is that the email is about and say it right away. So that you're not messing around or making them, get down to 3 or 4 paragraphs down before you get into what your message is actually about. So open with your main idea. And really, another one of my pet peeves is when you have, multiple things that you address in that same email. If you open with that main idea, make sure that that email just stays about that one main idea instead of jumping all over the place to lots of different topics. So that's the second important part. The third one is when you get into your content, is to make it readable. And some of the things that we can use to do that are things like headings, bullet points, white space, using brevity, being clear, even bold, italics, all those things, so it's easy for readers to skim and scan through that content so they can just grab on to the most important pieces of information and keep it short. If it's too long, maybe that's another format instead of just an email. Lastly, if there's an action item, if it's not just information, you need to close with specifically what you want them to do as a result of that email. Just like a cover letter, you want some action at the end of it. Just like anything, you want to close with the hook, like what is it that they need to do? So whether that's a decision that needs to be made by Friday, follow up on a request that you've made, or I need you to do this by this date. Have something very specific at the end and spell it out. You don't want people to have to guess. And sometimes they don't guess the things that you think that you're communicating. So close with that specific thing if there's one that's associated with your email. So those are the 4 main things that if you get those things going right, you're doing pretty well. And then you'll have a higher likelihood of people reading your emails, responding, and getting action, which is what we're shooting for when we're in that business community and trying to get work done. So email is an important thing. It's not going away. So let's learn to do it right.